The mountain doesn't forgive weakness, and it doesn't forget debt. Sarah Cole then learned that truth the hard way, carved into her bones over 17 winters of solitude. She stands on a ridge above her cabin now, breath fogging the pre-dawn cold, watching the line where darkness bleeds into pale gray light. The wind carries the scent of pine resin and coming snow, a smell so familiar it feels like breathing memory itself. Her hands are raw despite the worn gloves, fingers stiff as she adjusts the strap of the rifle slung across her shoulder. The weight is reassuring, practical. Out here, everything serves a purpose or it doesn't survive. She learned that lesson when she was 32, when the avalanche took her husband and 8-year-old daughter in a single, terrible moment that split her life into before and after. She is 49 now, the years showing the lines around her eyes, the silver threading through dark hair. She keeps tied back with whatever's handy. Today it's a strip of leather from a broken bootlace. Her face is weathered, angular, the kind of face that looks carved from the same stone as the cliffs. People in town, the few times she ventures down, call her hard. She doesn't correct them. Hard is what keeps you alive when soft things die in the cold. Before we continue, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story is touching you already, make sure you're subscribed. I've got something extra special saved for tomorrow. Sarah moves down the slope with the efficiency of someone who knows every stone, every treacherous patch of ice hidden under snow. Her boots crunch rhythmically. Behind her, the cabin sits like a dark wound in the white landscape. Small, smoke rising from the chimney in a thin gray thread. It's not much, but it's hers. The only thing she managed to hold on to when grief tried to drown her. She's checking the trapline today, same as she does every 3 days. Rabbit, mostly. Sometimes a grouse if she's lucky. The pelts bring enough money to buy flour, coffee, the occasional box of ammunition. She doesn't need much. Needing things is dangerous. Wanting things is worse. The first 2 traps are empty, springs unsprung. The third has been disturbed. The mechanism twisted, broken, as if something large stepped in it and tore free. Sarah kneels, examining the snow around it. Blood, just a few drops, already frozen into dark beads. And tracks. Her breath catches. Cat tracks. Huge ones, the prints nearly 5 inches across. The distinctive rounded shape, with no claw marks visible. Her mind catalogs the possibilities. Mountain lion, maybe, though they're rare this high up. But the size is wrong. These are bigger, heavier, and the gait pattern. Sarah's throat tightens with a recognition she doesn't want to name. Snow leopard. Impossible. There haven't been snow leopards in these mountains since before she was born. Her grandmother used to tell stories about them, the ghost cats that lived above the tree line, so pale they vanish against winter itself. But the hunters and trappers wiped them out decades ago, driven by bounties and the value of their pelts. Yet here in the snow, the evidence contradicts everything she thought she knew. Sarah rises slowly, every sense suddenly sharp. The forest around her feels different now, not threatening exactly, but charged, expectant. She follows the tracks. They lead upslope toward the old mining district. The thought makes her uneasy. Those mines have been abandoned since the 1930s, when the silver ran out and the company pulled up stakes, leaving behind a honeycomb of tunnels that honeycomb the mountain like rot in a tooth. Dangerous places. Cave-ins, bad air, shafts that drop into darkness without warning. She's avoided them for years. But the tracks pull her forward like a thread she can't cut. The terrain grows rougher, the trees thinning until she's climbing over bare rock and patches of windswept snow. Her lungs burn with the altitude. She can see the mine entrance now, a black mouth in the cliff face. Partially collapsed, timbers jutting out like broken ribs. The tracks lead straight to it. Sarah stops at the entrance, one hand on the rough stone. The darkness inside is absolute, swallowing light. The wind that breathes out carries a smell, rock, dust, old timber, and something else. Something alive. She unslings her rifle, checks the chamber. Loaded. Safety off. Stupid, she mutters to herself. This is stupid. But her feet move forward anyway, boots crunching on gravel and broken glass. The mind swallows her whole. Inside, the temperature drops immediately. The The walls press close, timber supports overhead groaning with the weight of the mountain. Sarah's eyes adjust slowly to the dimness. Light filters in from the entrance behind her, but it fades fast, reaching only 20 feet or so, before dying completely. She pulls out the small LED flashlight from her coat pocket, one of her few concessions to modern convenience. The beam cuts through the darkness, revealing a tunnel that slopes downward, tracks on the walls where carts once ran. The snow leopard's tracks are harder to follow here, just occasional smears of blood on stone, a tuft of pale fur caught on a broken beam. But there's no question the animal came this way. Sarah moves deeper, rifle ready, senses screaming at her to turn back. But something stronger than fear pulls her forward. Curiosity, maybe, or the simple fact that she's been dead inside for so long that danger barely registers anymore. The tunnel branches. She chooses left, following a faint sound, not quite breathing, not quite movement, just a presence in the darkness ahead. The passage opens into a larger chamber, an old work area where miners once drilled and blasted. Her flashlight beam sweeps the space, rusted equipment, a collapsed wooden platform, and there in the corner, a shape that makes her heart stop. The snow leopard. It lies on its side, chest heaving, eyes reflecting her light in an eerie green glow. Even from 10 feet away, she can see how emaciated it is, ribs visible through thick pale fur, hip bones jutting sharply. One front paw is mangled, caught in her trap and torn free, blood matting the fur. The animal watches her, but doesn't move. No snarl, no aggressive posture. It's simply too weak. Sarah's throat closes with unexpected emotion. She's looked at death enough times to recognize it. This creature is dying. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Woman and cat, predator and prey, or maybe just two survivors who've wandered too far from safety. Then Sarah does something she can't quite explain, even to herself. She lowers the rifle. "I'm not going to hurt you," she says quietly, voice rough from disuse. Talking to a wild animal is absurd, but absurdity doesn't matter much anymore. You're already doing a fine job of that yourself. The leopard's ear flicks at the sound of her voice. Those eyes track her as she moves slowly to the side, circling to get a better look at the injured paw. The trap damage is severe. Deep lacerations, possible broken bones, infection already setting in judging by the smell and the dark discoloration around the wounds. Without treatment, the animal will be dead in days, maybe hours. Sarah should leave, should put a bullet in it to end the suffering quickly, should walk away and let nature take its course. Instead, she finds herself thinking about the medicine kit back at her cabin, the antibiotics she keeps for emergencies, the sutures and bandages. "You're too big to carry," she tells the leopard. "And too mean, probably, but if you can walk." She backs toward the entrance slowly, keeping her light and voice steady. "I'm going to get supplies. You stay put. Don't die before I get back." The absurdity of the command almost makes her laugh. Almost. The climb back to her cabin is faster, driven by urgency she doesn't fully understand. She tears through her supplies. The tackle box where she keeps medical equipment, rolls of gauze, a bottle of veterinary antibiotics she bought years ago when she still had a dog. Everything goes into her pack along with strips of dried meat, a blanket, more rope. She's moving on instinct now, muscle memory from a life she thought she'd left behind. Before the avalanche, she used to help her husband with injured animals, deer hit by cars, birds with broken wings. Once a bear cub separated from its mother. She'd been good at it, patient and steady-handed. She thought those parts of her had died with her family. The return trip to the mine feels longer, her pack heavier. Doubt creeps in with every step. This is insane. Dangerous. The animal could kill her the moment she gets close enough. And even if it doesn't, even if she somehow manages to treat it, what then? Release it back into the wild, to starve more slowly? Keep it captive? There are no good answers. Only the pull of something she felt die inside herself years ago and thought was gone forever. The simple, stubborn belief that some lives are worth fighting for. When she reaches a mine entrance again, the light is different. Afternoon sliding toward evening, shadows lengthening across the snow. She has maybe 2 hours before full dark. Inside, the leopard is exactly where she left it, but weaker. The breathing is more labored now, sides heaving with effort. Those green eyes find her in the darkness, reflecting her flashlight beam. "Still here," Sarah murmurs. "Stubborn. I can work with stubborn." She sets down her pack, moving slowly, deliberately. Every action is telegraphed. No sudden movements, no surprises. She pulls out the meat first, tosses it closer to the animal. The leopard's nose twitches. It doesn't move toward the food, just watches her with an intensity that prickles her skin. "You need to eat," she says firmly. "Can't heal if you don't eat." Still no movement. Sarah edges closer, 6 feet now, 5. Close enough to see the individual spots in the pale fur, the dry blood crusted around the damaged paw, the hollowness in the animal's flanks. She can smell it now, too, the wild musk, the blood, the beginning stages of infection. Her stomach turns, but she doesn't back away. "I'm going to help you," she says, voice steadier than she feels. "Or I'm going to die trying. Haven't decided which yet." The leopard's tail twitches once. Not aggressive, more like acknowledgement. Sarah kneels, pulling out supplies. The animal tenses, muscles coiling, but doesn't strike. She wets a cloth with clean water from her canteen, talks in a low, steady stream while she works. "My name's Sarah. Sarah Colvin. Lived on this mountain 17 years now, since my husband Tom and my girl Emma." Her voice catches. She swallows hard. "Since they died. Avalanche took them both. I was in town buying supplies. Came home to nothing." The words pour out, unplanned, pulled from her by the simple act of not being alone for the first time in years. The leopard listens, or seems to, those eyes never leaving her face. "Everyone said I should leave. Sell the cabin, move somewhere safe. But this mountain..." She reaches toward the injured paw, moving slowly. "This mountain is where they're buried. Where everything that mattered is buried. Couldn't leave them." Her fingers touch fur. The leopard stiffens, but doesn't pull away. Sarah's heart hammers against her ribs. She begins cleaning the wounds, working carefully around mangled tissue and exposed bone. The animal trembles but holds still, a low rumble building in its chest. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr. "I know it hurts," Sarah whispers. "I know, but infection will kill you faster than the injury. Have to clean it." The process takes over an hour. She flushes the wounds with clean water, applies antibiotic ointment, injects a dose of antibiotics into the muscle of the leopard haunch. A moment of risk when the needle goes in, and those massive jaws could close on her arm, but they don't. By the time she's wrapping the paw in gauze and securing it with tape, full darkness has fallen outside. Her flashlight beam is weakening, battery dying. "That's all I can do today," she tells the leopard, sitting back on her heels. Her entire body aches with tension finally releasing. "Tomorrow I'll bring more food, more medicine. You need to drink too. There's water in that bowl." She's placed her canteen lid nearby, filled with water. The leopard ignores it, still watching her. Sarah gathers her things slowly. At the tunnel entrance, she looks back. 2 green eyes glow in the darkness, unblinking. "Don't die on me," she says. Not a request, a command. Then she steps out into the freezing night and begins a long walk home. She doesn't sleep that night. She sits by her stove, hands wrapped around weak coffee, replaying every moment in the mind. The madness of it settles over her slowly. What she's done, what she's risking. That animal could recover just enough to kill her next time, could lead other predators to her cabin, could die anyway despite everything she's done. But beneath the fear and doubt, something else stirs, something that feels dangerously like hope. When dawn breaks, Sarah's already moving, pack loaded with more supplies. She makes the climb to mine in record time, driven by a fear she won't name, that she'll find the leopard dead, that brief connection severed. But when she enters the chamber, the animal raises its head, still alive, still watching. "Good," Sarah says, and means it with an intensity that surprises her. "That's good." She sets down fresh meat, rabbit she trapped yesterday afternoon, already skinned and cleaned. This time, The leopard eats, tearing into the meat with desperate hunger, while Sarah changes bandages and checks for signs of infection. The wounds look better. Not good, but better. The flesh is less inflamed, the smell less sickening. "You're strong," Sarah murmurs, working carefully. "Stronger than you have any right to be." This becomes their routine. Twice a day, Sarah makes the climb to mine. Morning and evening, feeding, treating wounds, talking in that low, steady stream. She tells the leopard everything. About Tom's laugh, about Emma's obsession with drawing birds, about the 17 years of silence that followed their deaths. The leopard listens, or seems to. Gradually, the animal grows stronger, starts moving around the chamber, limping but mobile, starts accepting her presence without the initial wariness. On the 5th day, Sarah notices something strange. While checking the leopard's bandages, her hand brushes against something hard beneath the thick fur around its neck. Not bone, not muscle. She probes gently. Metal. Her breath catches. What is this? Carefully, she parts the fur. There, half hidden by the thick coat, is a collar. Not a modern tracking collar. Nothing electronic. This is old, ancient even, made of tarnished silver with symbols etched into the metal. Sarah's hands tremble as she examines it. The symbols are unfamiliar, geometric patterns that seem to shimmer in her flashlight beam. And there, on one side, she can just make out letters worn almost smooth by time. Property of Colvin Mining Company, 1932. The world tilts. Colvin, her husband's family name. Her name by marriage. That's impossible, she breathes. Her mind races. Try and make sense of what she's seeing. The Colvin Mining Company was founded by Tom's great-grandfather, operated these exact mines until they closed in the Great Depression. But why would they call her a snow leopard? For what purpose? The leopard watches her, something almost knowing in those green eyes. Sarah sits back hard, her medical supplies forgotten. What were they doing up here? She asks aloud. What did they find? The answer, she realizes with growing certainty, is somewhere in this mine, somewhere deeper than this chamber. She looks at the leopard, at the collar around its neck, at the darkness stretching away into tunnels she hasn't explored. "You were leading me here, weren't you?" she whispers. "Not running, leading." The leopard stands, favoring its injured paw but steady. It moves toward the back of the chamber, where a narrow passage Sarah hadn't noticed before opens into deeper darkness. The animal pauses, looks back at her, waiting. Every survival instinct Sarah screams at her to leave, to go home, to forget this madness. But the collar is real. The connection to her husband's family is real. And something in this mountain has been waiting decades to be found. Sarah picks up her flashlight, checks her rifle, and follows the snow leopard into the depths of the mine. The passage is barely wide enough for her shoulders, the ceiling so low she has to duck. The leopard moves ahead of her with surprising ease, its lithe body designed for narrow spaces. Sarah's light dances across rough stone walls, catching on the occasional timber support or rusted piece of equipment left behind when the mines closed. They descend for what feels like hours, though it's probably only 20 minutes. The air grows colder, damper. Sarah can hear water dripping somewhere in the darkness, a steady rhythmic sound that echoes strangely. The passage opens suddenly into a cavern, so large her flashlight beam can't find the far wall. The space feels ancient, natural rather than man-made, with formations hanging from the ceiling and rising from the floor like stone teeth. But it's not empty. In the center of the cavern stands a structure, a cabin, impossibly, built right here inside the mountain. Not a mining shack, but an actual dwelling, with walls and a roof and a door hanging crooked on its hinges. Sarah's breath comes in short bursts. The leopard pads toward the cabin, sits down in front of the door, and looks at her expectantly. What is this place? Sarah whispers. She approaches slowly, every step revealing more details. The cabin is old, built from the same timber as the mine supports. Symbols are carved into the door frame, the same geometric patterns from the leopard's collar. And there, barely visible under decades of dust and grime, she can make out words burned into a wooden plaque. Colvin Research Station, established 1932. Research Station, Not a storage facility, not a foreman's office. Research. Sarah's hands shake as she pushes the door open. The hinges shriek, breaking the cavern silence. Inside, her flashlight reveals a single room, surprisingly intact. A desk, a chair, shelves lined with notebooks and jars. Equipment she doesn't recognize. Strange instruments that look like a cross between scientific tools and something from a fever dream. And on every surface, papers. Stacks and stacks of papers covered in handwriting, diagrams, calculations. Sarah picks up the nearest notebook, opens it to a random page. The handwriting is precise, methodical. Day 47. The specimen continues to respond to the crystalline formations. Vitals stable. The collar successfully maintains a connection. J. Cole then believes we are close to proving the theory, that the mountains themselves hold a form of consciousness, and certain animals can serve as conduits. The snow leopard chosen for its natural affinity to high-altitude environments and solitary nature. If successful, this could revolutionize our understanding of... The entry cuts off mid-sentence. Sarah flips forward, finding more pages filled with observations, sketches of the cavern, and maps of tunnel systems branching throughout the mountain. But as the dates progress, the handwriting becomes more hurried, more frantic. She finds an entry dated November 1932. The company wants to shut us down. The silver veins have run dry, and they see no profit in continuing the research. Jay refuses to abandon the work. He says the leopard has shown him something, led him to a discovery that will change everything. But the others are afraid. Strange sounds in the deep tunnels. Equipment malfunctioning. Thompson swears he saw lights where no light should be. Another page, weeks later. Jay took the leopard into the eastern passage 3 days ago. Neither has returned. The crew is demanding we seal the mine and leave. I tried to follow, but the passages shift. I can't find the way back to where we started. Something is wrong with this mountain. We should never have come here. The final entry is a single line, the handwriting barely legible. If anyone finds this, don't go deeper. Some doors should stay closed. Sarah's hands are shaking now. She sets down the notebook and looks at the leopard, still sitting patiently by the door. The collar around its neck suddenly feels less like a research tool and more like a key. J. Colvin, she says aloud. Jonathan Colvin. That was Tom's great-grandfather. He disappeared in 1932. The family always said he died in a cave-in, but they never found a body. The leopard tilts its head, those green eyes reflecting her light. Sarah steps back to the desk, rifling through more papers. She finds maps, detailed surveys of the mine system, with certain passages marked in red. One tunnel, leading east from this cavern, is circled multiple times. Beside it, a note in that same frantic handwriting. The source. This is where it originates. The consciousness. The power. Whatever built this mountain, it's still here. Still aware. Still, the word is crossed out violently, replaced with waiting. A chill runs down Sarah's spine that has nothing to do with the cold. She looks toward the eastern passage, a dark mouth in the cavern wall that seems to breathe darkness. The leopard stands, moves toward that passage, stops, looks back at her. No, Sarah says firmly. Absolutely not. That entry says don't go deeper. We're not going deeper. The leopard huffs, an almost frustrated sound, and pads back toward her. It presses its massive head against her leg, surprisingly gentle. Then it moves to the desk, uses its nose to push aside papers until it reveals something Sarah missed. A photograph. She picks it up carefully. Black and white, faded, showing a group of men standing in front of a mine entrance. She recognizes a location, the same entrance she's been using. And there, in the center of the group, stands a man holding what is unmistakably a snow leopard cub. Sarah flips the photo over. Written in pencil on the back. J. Colvin and Ghost, 1932. First successful bonding. Ghost, Sarah whispers, looking at the full-grown leopard beside her. That's your name? The animal's ear twitches. But that would make you... She does the math quickly. Over 90 years old. That's impossible. Yet the collar is real. The photograph is real. And this leopard, this ghost, led her here with clear purpose. Sarah sits down hard on the dusty floor, her mind struggling to accept what the evidence is telling her. Something happened in this mine in 1932, something involving her husband's family and this snow leopard, something that extended the animal's life far beyond natural limits. And now, 90 years later, Ghost has come back. Why? She looks again at the papers scattered across the desk, at the maps marking the Eastern Passage. The answer, whatever it is, lies deeper in the mine, in the place Jonathan Colvin disappeared, in the source he wrote about with such fear and fascination. If I go down there, Sarah says quietly, I might not come back, just like your friend didn't come back. Ghost makes a low sound, almost a whine. But if I don't, she trails off, thinking about the collar, the research, the mystery that's been buried here for nearly a century. Thinking about Tom and Emma, about the 17 years she spent just surviving, about the emptiness that's been eating her alive. Maybe some doors should be opened. Sarah stands, gathering what supplies she can, notebooks, the photograph, a roll of maps. She checks her rifle, her flashlight. The battery is dying, but she has a spare. All right, she tells Ghost. All right, show me. The leopard turns toward the Eastern Passage, and Sarah follows, leaving the research station behind, descending deeper into the mountain's heart, where something has been waiting for 90 years to be found. The Eastern Passage is different from the others. The walls are too smooth, almost polished. The air tastes metallic, charged like before a lightning storm. Sarah's flashlight beam catches on veins of something crystalline running through the rock, not silver, not gold, something that glimmers with its own faint luminescence. Ghost moves confidently ahead, no longer limping. The injury that nearly killed him seems forgotten, though Sarah knows that impossible, unless the deeper they go, the more the mountain's strange properties affect them both. They walk for what might be 10 minutes or an hour. Time feels slippery here, elastic. Sarah's watch stopped working the moment they entered this passage, hands frozen at 2:47. The passage opens into another cavern, smaller than the last, and Sarah's breath catches in her throat. The walls are covered in symbols, thousands of them, carved deep into stone. Not the simple geometric patterns from the collar, but elaborate designs that seem to move in her flickering light, that pull at her eyes until she has to look away or risk falling into them. In the center of the cavern, a natural formation rises from the floor like an altar. On it rests a box. Not wood, not metal, something else. Something that looks like stone but shimmers like water, that seems to exist slightly outside normal space, edges blurring and sharpening as she stares. Ghost sits beside the formation, watching her with those ancient green eyes. This is it, Sarah says. Her voice sounds hollow, absorbed by the stone. This is what they found. What Jonathan Colvin found. She approaches slowly, every instinct screaming danger. But stronger than fear is curiosity, the need to understand what has pulled her here, what has kept this leopard alive for 90 years, what secret cost her husband's ancestor's life. The box is smaller than she expected, maybe 8 inches on each side. No visible seam, no lock, no way to open it. But when she touches it, the surface ripples like water and symbols appear in the stone, the same patterns from Ghost's collar, from the research station, from the walls of this cavern. And Sarah understands, with a certainty that bypasses logic, that this box is not meant to be opened by human hands alone. She looks at Ghost. The leopard stands, moves to the opposite side of the altar, places one massive paw on the box's surface. The symbols begin to glow. Sarah's hand on the box grows warm, then hot. Energy pulses up her arm, through her chest, into her mind. Images flood her consciousness, not words, not pictures exactly, but pure understanding. This mountain is old, older than the forests that cover it, older than humanity. It was here when the world was different, and something came to it. Not a god, not a spirit. Something else. Something that learned to think in stone and sleep in crystal and dream in the spaces between atoms. The Colvin Mining Company found it by accident, drilling into veins that should have contained silver, but instead held something far stranger. And Jonathan Colvin, brilliant and curious and far too ambitious, decided to study it rather than bury it. He experimented, trying to harness the mountain's consciousness. He collared a snow leopard, the only animal that could survive the altitude and the solitude, and use it as a bridge between human understanding and the alien awareness sleeping in the stone. It worked for a while, but consciousness, when awakened, demands purpose. And this ancient thing, this mountain that thinks, had been sleeping for reasons. It had sealed itself away from the world because connection brought pain, brought the risk of being used, being changed, being broken by minds that didn't understand what they were touching. Jonathan Cole then went too deep, pushed too hard, and the mountain, in self-defense, closed around him, sealed him in crystal, trapped him in stone. Not dead, but not alive. Suspended, consciousness preserved, waiting. The box contains his essence, his mind, his memories, his last desperate attempt to warn anyone who came after. And Ghost, the leopard that bonded with him, that carried his collar, that was changed by that connection. Ghost escaped, survived, waited 90 years for someone to come who could finish what Jonathan started, not opening the mountain further, closing it properly, setting it back to sleep, releasing Jonathan's trapped consciousness. Sarah gasps as the images fade, leaving her shaking, tears streaming down her face. She understands now, understands everything. "You need me to let him go," she whispers to Ghost, "to end it, to set the mountain back to sleep." The leopard's eyes hold hers. "Yes, and if I do, you'll—" She can't finish the sentence. Ghost's life is tied to the collar, to the connection, to the mountain's consciousness. Once it sleeps again, the bond will break. The years will catch up. The leopard will finally be able to die. "I can't," Sarah says, voice breaking. "I just found you. I can't lose." But even as she says it, she knows the truth. This isn't about saving. It's about letting go, about understanding that some lives are meant to end, that holding on beyond natural time causes more suffering than release. She learned that lesson 17 years ago, when she couldn't let go of her family, when she imprisoned herself on this mountain rather than face the world without them. Ghost has been waiting 90 years for someone strong enough to finish this. To do what Jonathan Cole then couldn't do, walk away from power, from knowledge, from the seductive promise of connection with something vast and ancient. Sarah looks at the box, at the leopard, at her own hand still pressed against that impossible surface. "All right," she whispers. "All right, I understand." She closes her eyes, focuses on the energy flowing between her hand and Ghost's paw, and does what Jonathan Cole then never could. She lets go. Part 2, the unraveling. The moment Sarah releases her grip on the box's surface, the cavern erupts with light. Not painful, not blinding. More like every crystal formation in the wall simultaneously remembers how to breathe. The luminescence pulses in waves, each surge revealing more detail, more impossible beauty, more evidence that this place exists outside the normal rules of geology and stone. Ghost collar blazes with those same geometric symbols, bright enough that Sarah has to look away. The leopard stands rigid, head tilted back, a sound building in his chest that's part roar, part something else entirely. Something that resonates in Sarah's bones, in the stone beneath her feet, in the mountain itself. The box begins to change. The surface that seemed solid moments ago now ripples and flows like water disturbed by wind. Colors swirl beneath the stone that isn't stone, deep blues, violent purples, flashes of gold like veins of treasure that never existed. And from the center, something rises, a shape, humanoid but wrong, too tall, proportions slightly off. It pulls free of the box with the slowness of something moving through honey, through time itself. As it solidifies, Sarah recognizes what she's seeing. A man, or the memory of a man, or the consciousness of a man trapped for 90 years trying to remember what form it once wore. The figure is translucent, visible but not quite present. When it turns toward her, Sarah sees a face she knows from the photograph. Jonathan Colvin, Tom's great-grandfather. But the eyes are wrong. Too old, too aware. They hold centuries of knowledge compressed into decades of isolation. Thank you. The voice doesn't come from the figure's mouth. It comes from everywhere. The walls, the air, the crystals themselves. Thank you for having the courage to finish what I began. Sarah's throat is too tight to speak. She watches as Jonathan's form drifts toward Ghost, reaches out a hand that passes through solid fur like mist. I'm sorry, old friend, he says, and this time the voice cracks with genuine emotion. I did this to you. I gave you the collar. I bound you to this place, to me, to the mountain's consciousness. I thought I could control it, use it. I was wrong. Ghost makes a sound, low, mournful, understanding. The mountain isn't evil, Jonathan continues, turning back to Sarah. It's not even hostile. It's simply other. So different from us that any attempt to bridge that gap causes damage. I learned that too late. The more I try to understand it, to communicate with it, the more my own consciousness began to fragment. I was losing myself, becoming something neither human nor mountain, trapped between. He gestures around the cavern. I sealed myself in the box before I could transform completely, before I could become something that might hurt others. And I left Ghost free, hoping that someday someone would come who could do what needed to be done. Close it, Sarah says quietly, finding her voice. Put the mountain back to sleep. Yes. Jonathan's form is already fading, becoming more translucent. But understand, once the consciousness sleeps again, everything it touched will return to normal time. The collar will become just metal. The crystals will become ordinary stone. And Ghost. I know, Sarah whispers. She looks at the leopard, at the magnificent creature that should have died decades ago, that has been waiting patiently for this moment of release. I know. Ghost moves to her side, presses his massive head against her leg one final time. She buries her fingers in his thick fur, memorizing the texture, the warmth, the solid reality of him. How do I do it? She asks Jonathan. The same way you opened it. Intention. Choice. You must want the mountain to sleep. Must be willing to give up everything it could offer you. Knowledge, power, connection to something vast and ancient. You must choose the ordinary over the extraordinary. Sarah almost laughs. After 17 years of isolation, of choosing emptiness over risk, of letting herself become as cold and hard as the mountain itself, choosing ordinary seems impossibly simple. What happens to you? She asks. Jonathan's smile is sad. I go where all consciousness goes when it finally lets go. I don't know what that means, but I've been holding on for 90 years. I'm ready to find out. He looks at Ghost one final time. Take care of her, old friend, as long as you can. Then Jonathan Colvin, or the memory of Jonathan Colvin, or whatever combination of man and mountain he become, dissolves into light that scatters like dust motes in a sunbeam. Sarah stands alone with the leopard in the glowing cavern. The box sits on its altar, pulsing gently, waiting. She places both hands on its surface, closes her eyes, and chooses. Sleep, she thinks, pushing the intention into the stone. Sleep and dream. Let go of consciousness. Return to being mountain, just mountain, stone and crystal and darkness and peace. The light intensifies for a moment, becomes almost unbearable. Then, like a candle being extinguished, it's gone. Darkness crashes down. Her flashlight, which died minutes ago, somehow works again, but the beam reveals only ordinary cavern walls. The crystals that glow with their own luminescence are just rock now. The symbols carved into stone are still visible, but they no longer pull at her eyes, no longer seem to move and breathe. The box is gone entirely. In its place, just a smooth depression in the stone altar. And Ghost. Sarah looks down. The leopard is still there, but the collar around his neck has gone dark. The symbols faded to barely visible scratches in tarnished metal. As she watches, Ghost sits down heavily. The years are catching up, time reasserting itself after decades of suspension. No, Sarah whispers, dropping to her knees beside him. Not yet. Please, not yet. But Ghost looks at her with clear, calm eyes. He's ready, has been ready for 90 years. This is mercy, not tragedy. Sarah holds him as his breathing slows. She feels his heartbeat against her palm, strong at first, then weaker, then just the faintest flutter. She talks to him in a steady stream, the way she did when she first found him injured and dying, tells him he's good, he's done well, he can rest now. When the final heartbeat stills, Sarah sits in the darkness with a dead snow leopard in her arms and cries for the first time since the avalanche took her family. She cries for Ghost, for Jonathan, for Tom and Emma, for 17 years of self-imposed isolation, for every moment of connection she's denied herself because connection meant risk and risk meant pain. She cries until she has nothing left. The climb out of the mine takes hours. Sarah carries what she can from the research station, notebooks, the photograph, evidence of what happened here. Ghost's body she can't carry, can't bear to leave to rot in the darkness. She finds a sheltered corner in the natural cavern, arranges him carefully, and covers him with her coat. "Thank you," she whispers, "for showing me, for trusting me, for reminding me that some things are worth the pain of losing them." When she finally emerges from the mine entrance, the sun is setting, painting the snow in shades of rose and gold. The world looks exactly the same as it did before, but Sarah feels fundamentally altered, cracked open in ways that terrify and exhilarate her in equal measure. She makes it to her cabin as full dark falls. Inside, she lights the stove, makes coffee with shaking hands, and sits at her small table with Jonathan Colvin's notebook spread before her. The research is extraordinary. Detailed observations of the mountain's consciousness, experiments in communication, theories about the nature of awareness itself. In different circumstances, this could revolutionize science, philosophy, everything humanity thinks it knows about the world. But Sarah remembers a warning scratched in that final entry. Some doors should stay closed. She knows what she has to do. By dawn, she's made up her mind. She'll destroy the research, burn the notebooks, bury the evidence, collapse the mine entrance with explosives if necessary. The mountain is sleeping now, its consciousness safely dormant. It needs to stay that way. But first, there's something else she needs to do. Sarah packs a small bag, just essentials, enough for a few days in town. The drive down the mountain is treacherous this time of year, but her old truck knows the way, has made this journey 100 times. Usually Sarah dreads going to town, hates the questions and the pity and the weight of being the crazy widow who lives alone in the mountains. Today, she barely notices the stairs when she parks outside the county recorder's office. Inside, a middle-aged woman looks up from her computer with a practiced smile that falters when she recognizes Sarah. "Mrs. Colvin, I haven't seen you in, must be 3 years now." Sarah says, "I need to look at historical mining records. The Colvin Mining Company, specifically." The woman's eyebrows rise. "That's going back a ways. 1920s, early 30s? Exactly that period. Everything you have." It takes an hour to locate the relevant files, boxes of yellow documents that smell of dust and time. Sarah spreads them across a reading table and begins going through them methodically. Claim deeds, work reports, payroll records. She's looking for something specific, and she finds it buried in a box marked Unsettled Claims 1932, a document titled Mineral Rights Assessment and Disputed Territory. The language is dense, legal, almost impossible to parse. But the summary is clear enough. In 1932, the Colvin Mining Company attempted to claim exclusive rights to a section of the mountain that included not just silver deposits, but unusual geological formations of potential, scientific and commercial value. The claim was disputed by the federal government, which argued the land should be protected as part of the national forest system. The dispute was never resolved. Jonathan Colvin disappeared before the hearing. The company collapsed shortly after. The land fell into a legal gray area, technically owned by the Colvin family, but with the mineral rights frozen in bureaucratic limbo, which means that technically, legally, that section of mountain, including the cavern system, the research station, everything, belongs to Sarah. Inherited through her marriage to Tom, passed down through the family line. She sits back hard, mind racing. If she reports what she found, if she tells anyone about the research, the crystals, the box, the government will seize the land. Scientists will descend like locusts. The mine will be excavated, studied, torn apart. And eventually, Someone will do what Jonathan Colvin did. They'll go too deep, push too hard, and wake the mountain's consciousness again. The cycle will repeat, unless Sarah ends it now. She gathers the documents carefully. At the front desk, she asks about the process for officially claiming the disputed land, for settling the mineral rights once and for all. The clerk looks doubtful. It'll be complicated. You'll need a lawyer, probably, and the government might fight you on it. Could take years. I have time, Sarah says. The clerk shrugs, starts pulling forms. There's actually something else you should know. Someone else has been asking about the Colvin Mining Company recently. Sarah's blood goes cold. Who? Development company out of Denver. Apex Mountain Resources. They've been buying up old mining claims all over the region, looking for untapped deposits. They filed an inquiry about the Colvin property about 6 months ago. 6 months. Before Ghost found her. Before any of this started. What did you tell them? Sarah asks carefully. Same thing I'm telling you. The ownership is disputed. The mineral rights are frozen. Can't do anything with it until the legal status is resolved. The clerk pauses. But between you and me, they seemed really interested. Called back twice. Asked if anyone in the family still lived in the area. I didn't tell them anything, obviously. Privacy laws. Sarah's hands clench on the edge of the counter. Did they say why they wanted it? Something about unusual mineral signatures showing up on satellite surveys. Could be silver, could be something else. They were pretty vague. Unusual mineral signatures. The crystals, the formations in the cavern. Sarah's stomach turns. Thank you, she says quietly, for not telling them about me. Course. The clerk hands her a stack of forms. Fill these out, file them with a lawyer, and we'll see what happens. But Mrs. Colvin, she lowers her voice. If Apex is interested, they're not going to give up easy. They have money, and they have lawyers. You might want to consider just selling them the claim. Save yourself the headache. Sarah thinks about Ghost's lie in the darkness, about Jonathan Colvin's trapped consciousness, about the mountain sleeping peacefully after 90 years of fractured awareness. No, she says firmly. I'm not selling. That land stays protected. The drive back up the mountain should be peaceful. Instead, Sarah's mind won't stop racing. Apex Mountain Resources. 6 months of interest in the Colvin property. Unusual mineral signatures. They know something, maybe not everything. They can't know about the consciousness, about what Jonathan found, but they know enough to be dangerous. Sarah grips the steering wheel tighter as her truck climbs the switchbacks. She need to act fast, secure the property legally, then seal the mine permanently. Maybe trigger a control collapse, make it look natural. Dangerous abandoned mines collapse all the time. She's so focused on planning that she almost misses the vehicle parked at the turnoff to her cabin. Not a truck. A large SUV, black, too clean for mountain roads. Denver plates. Sarah's heart kicks into overdrive. She drives past without slowing, continuing up the main road for another mile before pulling off onto an old logging track. She kills the engine and sits in silence, thinking. Someone from Apex is at her cabin, waiting for her, or worse, already inside, searching. She checks her rifle, still loaded from the mine trip. She hasn't fired in months, but she keeps it maintained, and her aim has always been steady. Moving quietly, Sarah works her way back through the forest, approaching her cabin from behind. The afternoon light is fading, shadows lengthening across the snow. She can see the SUV clearly now and movement in her cabin's window. Someone is definitely inside. Rage flares in Sarah's chest, hot, cleansing, righteous. How dare they? How dare they come to her home, violate her space, search through her things. She circles wider, using the trees for cover. As she gets closer, she can see more detail. 2 people, both men, both dressed too nicely for mountains. Suits under practical winter coats. One is rifling through papers on her table. The other is photographing her bookshelf. Sarah approaches the cabin's front door, rifle ready but not raised. Not yet. She wants answers before she makes threats. She opens the door without knocking. Both men spin. The one at her table has the grace to look embarrassed. The one with the camera just looks calculating. Mrs. Colvin, the cameraman says smoothly, as if they'd arranged this meeting. "We've been hoping to speak with you." "You broke into my home," Sarah says flatly. "The door was unlocked. Doesn't make it legal." The cameraman, mid-40s, handsome in a corporate way, smile like a knife, steps forward, his hand extended. "Marcus Reeves. I'm with Apex Mountain Resources. This is my colleague, David Chun. We've been trying to reach you for weeks." Sarah doesn't shake his hand. "I don't have a phone. And breaking and entering isn't how you reach someone. Technically, we knock first." David Chun offers weakly. He looks younger, less comfortable with this entire situation. Marcus's smile doesn't waver. "Mrs. Colvin, we're not here to cause problems. We're here to make you an offer. A very generous offer. Not interested. You haven't heard the terms yet." "Don't need to." The answer is no. Marcus exchanges a glance with David. "Perhaps we could start over. May we sit?" Sarah's grip on her rifle remains steady. "You can leave. Through that door. Right now." "Mrs. Colvin, Sarah, if I may, we know about the Colvin Mining Company. We know your husband's family had claims on several sections of this mountain, including some with particularly interesting geological features. The claims are frozen, legally disputed. Even if I wanted to sell, which I couldn't." Marcus's smile widened slightly. "That's where you're wrong. We've had our lawyers review the case. The claims aren't frozen. They were never properly contested, which means ownership defaults to the family line, which means they're yours. Free and clear." Sarah's stomach sinks. She went to the county recorder's office to secure the land. Instead, she might have revealed that she has the right to access it. "Doesn't matter," she says, still not selling. $2 million. Marcus says simply. The number hangs in the air between them. More money than Sarah has seen in her entire life. More money than she could earn in 17 lifetimes of solitude and survival. "No," she says. Marcus's expression shifts slightly. The smile stays, but something cold enters his eyes. "May I ask why? That land is worthless to you. You don't mine it. You don't use it. It's just mountain. Dead rock. It's home." "Home?" Mrs. Colvin, "you live in a cabin that's falling apart. You survive on maybe $10,000 a year from trapping and whatever odd jobs you can find in town. $2 million could let you live anywhere. Do anything. You could leave this mountain behind." "I don't want to leave." "Why?" The question is sharper now. Frustrated. What could possibly be up here that's worth more than financial security? Sarah thinks about Ghost, about Jonathan Colvin, about the mountains sleeping beneath their feet. "Peace," she says simply. "Quiet. Things you can't buy." Marcus stares at her for a long moment. Then he nods slowly. "I see. David, let's go. We clearly can't reach an agreement today." David Chin starts gathering his equipment, relief evident on his face. But Marcus pauses at the door, turns back. "Mrs. Colvin, I want to be clear about something. Apex has invested significant resources in identifying valuable properties in this region. We don't give up easily. If you won't sell willingly, we have other options. Is that a threat?" Sarah's voice drops, dangerous. "It's a reality. You're one woman, living alone, with a claim to land you can't properly defend. Accidents happen in the mountains. Paperwork gets lost. Legal challenges appear. Sometimes it's simpler to accept generous offers rather than fight battles you can't win." The anger Sarah's been containing since entering the cabin blazes white hot. She raises a rifle slightly, not pointing at Marcus, not quite, but making the threat clear. "Get out," she says softly. "Now, and don't come back." Marcus's smile returns. "Of course. We'll be in touch." He steps outside, David following quickly. Through the window, Sarah watches him drive away, the SUV's headlights cutting through the gathering dusk. When the sound of the engine fades, Sarah closes the door and leans against it, suddenly shaking. Her cabin feels violated, poisoned by their presence. She checks her table, They didn't take anything, but they photographed everything. Her notes about the mine. Jonathan's journal pages she left out. Evidence that she knows more than she should. Stupid, she mutters to herself. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She should have been more careful. Should have hidden everything. Should have expected that finding Ghost, discovering the research station, wouldn't be the end of the story, but the beginning. Because now Apex knows she knows something. And they'll be back. With more men, better lawyers, and no more polite offers. Sarah paces her small cabin, mind racing. She needs help. Real help. A lawyer. Maybe someone who can navigate the legal maze of mineral rights and property claims. Someone who can protect the mountain from people like Marcus Reeves. But who? She's been isolated for 17 years. She has no friends in town, no connections. Just her name, Colvin, and a history most people would rather forget. Unless Sarah stops pacing. There's one person who might help. Someone she hasn't spoken to in over a decade. Someone who probably hates her, but who shares a connection to the Colvin family. Tom's brother, James. Sarah's relationship with her brother-in-law ended badly when Tom and Emma died. James wanted her to leave the mountain, to move to the city, to accept his help and his pity. Sarah had refused, chosen isolation, and James had eventually stopped trying. But James is a lawyer, a good one, and more importantly, he's family. He has as much right to the Colvin claims as she does. If Sarah can convince him to help her, together they might be able to protect the land. Keep Apex at bay long enough to seal the mine, destroy the evidence, ensure the mountain stays sleeping. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot she has. Sarah grabs her truck keys. The drive to Denver will take most of the night, but she can't wait. Every hour she delays is an hour Apex gets closer to finding what Jonathan Colvin found. As she steps outside, she looks up at the mountain silhouetted against the darkening sky. Somewhere in there, Ghost lies at rest. Jonathan Colvin's consciousness has finally been released. The ancient awareness has returned to sleep. "I'll protect you," Sarah whispers to the mountain. "I promise." Then she climbs into her truck and drives toward the city lights glowing on the horizon, toward the brother-in-law she abandoned, toward the help she desperately needs. The mountain stands silent behind her, keeping its secrets, waiting to see if she can keep her promise. End of part 2. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible mountain stories like this one. Part 3. The Vindication. Denver at night is everything Sarah's mountain isn't. Bright, loud, crowded with people and noise and a constant hum of traffic. She parks her beaten truck in front of a sleek downtown apartment building and sits for a moment, gathering courage. It's been 12 years since she last saw James. 12 years since the funeral. Since the angry words exchanged in the cemetery parking lot. Since James told her she was destroying herself and she told him to mind his own business. She wonders if he'll even let her in. The doorman eyes her skeptically. She's still wearing her mountain clothes, practical and worn, but she gives James his apartment number and is surprised when the man picks up the phone without argument. "Ms. Colvin to see you, Mr. Colvin." A pause. "Yes, sir. I'll send her up." The doorman hangs up, hands her a visitor's pass. 12th floor. Sarah takes the elevator up, her stomach twisting with each floor passed. The hallway is carpeted, quiet, so different from the rough boards of her cabin. She finds James's door and knocks before she can lose her nerve. The man who opens the door is both familiar and a stranger. James is Tom's face, the same strong jaw, the same dark eyes, but worn differently. Where Tom was weathered by sun and wind, James is marked by stress and long hours under fluorescent lights. He's dressed casually, jeans and a sweater, but even his relaxation looks expensive. For a long moment, they just stare at each other. "Sarah," James says finally. His voice is carefully neutral. "This is unexpected." "I need help," Sarah says bluntly. No preamble, no small talk. Legal help about the family mining claims. Something flickers across James's face. Surprise, curiosity, maybe a hint of the old frustration. He steps back, gestures her inside. The apartment is beautiful, all clean lines and expensive furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Sarah feels like a wolf led into a museum, dangerous, out of place, likely to break something valuable just by existing. Coffee? James asks. Please. He moves to the kitchen. Open concept, granite counters, appliances Sarah doesn't recognize, and starts a machine that probably costs more than her truck. The awkward silence stretches. You look good, James offers. Healthy. I look like I live in the mountains, Sarah corrects. Because I do. Fair enough. He pours 2 cups, hands her one. So, the mining claims. Why now after all these years? Sarah sits on the edge of an expensive leather couch, holding her coffee like a shield. A company called Apex Mountain Resources has been asking about the Colvin property. They showed up at my cabin today. Broke in, searched my things, offered me $2 million for the mineral rights. James's eyebrows rise. $2 million? For abandoned mining claims? They say satellite surveys show unusual mineral signatures. They want to excavate, study the formations. She hesitates. I need to stop them. Why? James sits across from her, genuinely curious. Sarah, $2 million would set you up for life. You could leave that mountain, buy a real house, have security. The mountain needs to stay protected. Sarah interrupts. The claims need to be secured. Then the land needs to be designated protected somehow. National forest, conservation easement. I don't know the legal terms, but it can't be developed. Ever. James studies her carefully. What aren't you telling me? Sarah takes a sip of coffee, buying time. How much can she reveal? James is a lawyer, practical and logical. If she tells him about ghosts, about Jonathan Colvin, about mountain consciousness and boxes that trap human minds, he'll think she's lost it. I found something, she says carefully, in the old mines. Research that our great-grandfather Jonathan was doing before he disappeared. It's sensitive, dangerous, potentially. If the wrong people get access to it, bad things could happen. What kind of research? I can't tell you that. Not yet, but I need you to trust me. James laughs, sharp, bitter. Trust you? Sarah, you cut me out of your life for 12 years. You refused every attempt I made to help you, to stay connected. Now you show up asking for legal help based on some mysterious research you won't explain. I know. Sarah sets down her coffee, meets his eyes. I know I hurt you. I know I've been... She struggles for words. Broken. After Tom and Emma died, I couldn't function in the normal world. The mountain was the only place I could breathe. Shutting you out wasn't about you. It was about survival. Survival. James's voice is flat. You call what you've been doing survival? Living alone, barely scraping by, refusing to let anyone help you? Yes, Sarah says simply. That's exactly what I call it. Because the alternative was dying. And I wasn't ready. The truth hangs between them. James looks away first, something in his expression softening slightly. I grieve too, you know, he says quietly. Tom was my brother. Emma was my niece. But I had to keep living, keep working, keep building a life. You just stopped. I know. Sarah's throat is tight, and I'm sorry for all of it. But right now, I need help stopping Apex. And you're the only lawyer I trust. The only lawyer you know. James corrects, but there's less edge in his voice now. That too. He's quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then, let me see what you have. Documents, evidence, anything that proves the claims are yours. Sarah pulls out the papers she took from the county recorder's office, along with photographs of some of Jonathan's research notes, the ones that don't mention consciousness or impossible boxes, just general geological observations. James spreads them across his coffee table, examining each page carefully. His lawyer brain is clearly engaged now, analyzing, strategizing. This is actually pretty solid, he says after several minutes. The claims were never properly contested. You're right. Ownership defaulted to the family, which means technically you and I both have rights to this land. Can we protect it? Maybe. James pulls out his phone, starts taking notes. There are several approaches. Conservation easement would be cleanest. Permanently restricts development while letting you retain ownership. Or we could donate it to the National Forest Service, though that means giving up control. How long would either option take? Months. Maybe a year. These things move slowly. Sarah's stomach sinks. We don't have months. Apex is pushing now. They made it clear they won't wait for me to decide. They threatened you? James's voice sharpens. Not explicitly, but the message was clear. James sets down his phone, his expression hardening. Okay, here's what we do. First thing tomorrow, we file an emergency injunction claiming environmental concerns. That'll freeze any development temporarily. Then we fast-track the conservation easement application. I have contacts at the Forest Service who owe me favors. Why would you help me? Sarah asks quietly. After everything. James looks at her for a long moment. Because Tom would want me to. Because Emma would want me to. And because... He pauses, choosing words carefully. Because maybe you're finally asking for help instead of pushing everyone away. That's progress. Sarah feels tears pricking her eyes. She blinks them back fiercely. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be a fight. Apex has money and resources. They'll challenge everything we do. He stands, moving to a desk in the corner, pulling out a laptop. But so do I, and I'm very good at what I do. For the first time since Ghost died in her arms, Sarah feels something like hope. They work through the night, James drafting legal documents, while Sarah provides details about the property, the mine systems, the historical background. She carefully edits what she shares. Nothing about consciousness or Ghost or Jonathan's experiments. But there's enough factual information to build a case. By dawn, James has a 30-page injunction ready to file. He makes coffee, better than Sarah's ever tasted, and they sit watching the city wake up through his massive windows. This research Jonathan was doing, James says carefully, the dangerous stuff. Does anyone else know about it? Apex suspects something. That's why they're interested. But they don't have proof? Not yet. Sarah hesitates. There are notebooks, equipment, evidence of what he found. I was planning to destroy it all. Seal the mine completely. Don't, James says immediately. Not yet. If this goes to court, and it will, we might need that evidence. At minimum, it establishes historical and scientific significance, which strengthens our conservation argument. It's dangerous, James, if the wrong people see it. Then we make sure the wrong people don't see it. We get a judge to seal it, classify it as sensitive material. He meets her eyes. Trust me on this. I know what I'm doing. Sarah wants to argue, but exhaustion is catching up with her. She's been running on adrenaline for days, finding Ghost, discovering the research station, confronting Apex, driving to Denver. Her body is demanding rest. Okay, she says finally, we do it your way. For now. James shows her to his guest room, more comfortable than anywhere Sarah slept in 17 years. But she lies awake despite her exhaustion, staring at the ceiling, worrying. She set something in motion now. Involved James, brought legal action, put the mountain secrets at risk of exposure. What if she's made everything worse? But when she finally sleeps, she dreams of Ghost. The snow leopard sits on a ridge in sunlight, collar shining, and looks at her with those ancient green eyes. In the dream, he seems at peace, approving. When she wakes, she chooses to take that as a sign. The injunction filing is scheduled for 9 a.m. James has borrowed clothes for Sarah, his own shirts and jeans, everything too big but clean, and she's almost presentable by the time they arrive at the courthouse. The hearing is quick, administrative. A tired-looking judge reviews James's paperwork, asks a few questions, and grants a temporary injunction based on environmental concerns pending further review. 60 days, the judge says. After that, you'll need to show cause why development should be permanently blocked. Understood, Your Honor, James says smoothly. They're walking out when Sarah sees them. Marcus Reeves and a woman in an expensive suit, clearly a lawyer, entering the courthouse. Marcus spots her, his expression darkening. Mrs. Colvin, he calls. How convenient running into you here. James steps slightly in front of Sarah, protective. Marcus Reeves, I presume? James Colvin, Mrs. Colvin's legal counsel. Marcus's lawyer steps forward. Patricia Vance, representing Apex Mountain Resources. Mr. Colvin, your injunction is premature and baseless. Our surveys indicate no environmental hazards. Your surveys are incomplete, James counters. The historical mining operations in that area use methods that may have left toxic residue. Until comprehensive testing is completed, development would be reckless. That's not what this is about. Marcus cuts in, voice tight with frustration. You know it, we know it. Mrs. Cole then is hiding something on that property, and this injunction is just a stalling tactic. Careful, Mr. Reeves. James says pleasantly, that sounds like an accusation. Do you have evidence to support it? Marcus glares but doesn't answer. Patricia Vance touches his arm, a clear signal to shut up. We'll see you in court, Mr. Cole, then, she says coolly, and we'll have that injunction overturned within the week. They walk away, Marcus throwing one last look at Sarah. Not angry now, but calculating, assessing. James exhales slowly. Well, they're going to be aggressive. Can they overturn the injunction? Sarah asks. They'll try, but I bought us 60 days minimum. Let's use them. The next week is a blur of activity. James takes leave from his firm, dedicating himself fully to the case. He hires environmental consultants to conduct surveys of a mine property, looking for any legitimate concerns they can use to strengthen their position. He contacts the Forest Service about the conservation easement, expediting paperwork that normally takes months, and he asks Sarah to take him to the mountain. They make the drive on a clear, cold morning. James's luxury sedan, looking absurdly out of place on the rough mountain roads. Sarah directs him to her cabin first. He needs to see what he's fighting for, needs to understand why she won't leave. James is quiet when he sees the cabin. The life Sarah's built from stubborn survival. She shows him the trapline, the woodpile, the simple routines that have sustained her for 17 years. It's smaller than I imagined, he says finally. It's enough. Is it? James turns to her. Sarah, be honest. Are you staying here because you want to, or because you're afraid to leave? The question cuts deeper than she expected. Sarah looks out at the mountain, at the ridge where she first found ghost tracks. Both, she admits. I was afraid. But now I'm staying because this place needs protecting. Because Jonathan Cole then started something here that needs to be finished properly. Because Ghost, she stops. Ghost! James prompts. Sarah makes a decision. James deserves the truth. At least some of it. Come on, she says. I need to show you something. She leads him to the mine entrance, now partially collapsed from natural weathering. James eyes the unstable timbers nervously. Is it safe? Safe enough. Stay close. They descend into the darkness. James uses his phone's flashlight. Sarah guides him to the research station, to Jonathan's cabin in the cavern. James's expression shifts from skepticism to wonder as he takes in the impossible structure, the notebooks, the evidence of work done 90 years ago. My God, he breathes. This is incredible. Sarah, this is historically significant. We could. Read this first, Sarah interrupts, handing him one of Jonathan's later notebooks. The one that describes the experiments, the collar, the mountain's consciousness in terms that sound increasingly unhinged. James reads in silence, his face going from excited to confused, concerned. When he finishes, he looks at Sarah with something like fear. Sarah, this sounds like... He sounds like he was losing his mind. Maybe he was, or maybe he found something real. She tells him about Ghost, about the collar, about the box in Jonathan's trapped consciousness. She expects him to call her crazy, to walk away, to regret ever helping her. Instead, James sits down heavily on the dusty floor. The collar, he says quietly. Do you still have it? Sarah nods, pulling from her pack. She's been carrying it since retrieving it from Ghost's body, unable to leave it behind. The tarnished silver catches James's light, symbols visible but dim. James examines it carefully, lawyer skepticism warring with something else, Family connection, maybe, or the simple evidence of his own eyes. I don't know if I believe in mountain consciousness or boxes that trap minds, he says slowly, but I believe something happened here. Something that scared Jonathan enough to seal himself away. Something that's been waiting decades to be found again. He looks up at Sarah. And if Apex gets access to this, they'll exploit it, study it, weaponize it if they can. Exactly. Then we need to make sure they never get the chance. James stands, determination hardening his features. The conservation easement isn't enough. We need this declared a protected archaeological site. Seal it completely, make it illegal to excavate. Can we do that? I don't know, but we're going to try. Over the following weeks, James builds their case methodically. He brings in archaeologists who declare the research station historically significant. He finds environmental engineers who document toxic residue from the old mining operations, genuine hazards that strengthen the injunction. He contacts indigenous tribal leaders whose ancestors lived in these mountains, finding oral histories that describe the area as sacred ground. Sarah watches him work with growing admiration. This is what James does. He fights with intelligence and resources and stubborn determination that reminds her powerfully of his brother. But Apex isn't idle either. They file counter motions, bring in their own experts, dig into Sarah's history, looking for ammunition. The case becomes public, local news picking up the story. Widow fights development company over mountain property. The attention makes Sarah deeply uncomfortable, but James handles the press skillfully, framing the narrative around conservation and cultural preservation rather than personal conflict. Then, 3 weeks into the legal battle, everything changes. Sarah is at James's apartment. She's been staying there rather than making the long drive back and forth. When his phone rings, she watches his expression shift from neutral to shocked to grim. "Thank you for the heads up," he says quietly, then hangs up. "What?" Sarah demands. "That was my contact at the Forest Service. Apex has filed a formal challenge to the Colvin family's claim to the property. They're arguing that the original mining claims were fraudulent, that Jonathan never properly registered them, and that the land should revert to federal control, where Apex has already filed for drilling rights." Sarah's stomach drops. Can they do that? They're doing it. Hearing is scheduled for next week. James runs a hand through his hair, frustrated. "This is bad, Sarah. If they succeed, you lose all rights to property. We lose any ability to protect it. Then we fight them." "With what?" "They're claiming the original claims are invalid. We need to prove Jonathan properly filed everything, that the family has legitimate ownership going back 90 years. He gestures at the documents spread across his table. "Our evidence is spotty at best. Lots of gaps, records that went missing when the company collapsed." Sarah thinks hard. There has to be something. Some proof that the claims are legitimate. Then she remembers. The research station, Jonathan's desk, the careful records he kept. "The mine," she says. "Jonathan documented everything. If he filed claims, there will be copies in his records." "Are you sure?" "No, but it's our only shot." James checks his watch. It's 3 p.m. If we leave now, we can get to the mountain by evening, search tonight, be back by tomorrow afternoon. "Let's go." They make the drive in tense silence, James pushing his sedan faster than is probably wise on the mountain roads. They reach Sarah's cabin as twilight is falling, colors bleeding from the sky. Sarah grabs her gear, flashlights, rope, supplies for a deep mine expedition. James changes into borrowed clothes, looking absurdly out of place in Sarah's extra mountain gear. "You don't have to come down there," Sarah tells him. "The mine is dangerous. I can search alone." "No." James's voice is firm. "This is family history. Tom's history. I should see it." They enter the mine together, descending into darkness. Sarah leads the way, muscle memory guiding her through passages she's traversed multiple times now. But as they go deeper, she notices something wrong. Fresh marks on the walls. Boot prints in the dust. Recently disturbed debris. "Someone's been here," she says quietly. "Apex." James whispers. "Maybe. Stay alert." They reach the research station cautiously. Sarah's flashlight beam sweeps the cabin, and her heart sinks. The place has been ransacked. Notebooks torn apart, papers scattered, equipment smashed. Someone searched this place thoroughly and violently, looking for something specific. No! Sarah breathes, rushing inside. She goes straight to Jonathan's desk, pulling open drawers. Empty. Completely empty. Every document, every record. Gone. They took everything. James says from the doorway, "Apex got here first." Sarah wants to scream, wants to break something, but instead, she forces herself to think. Jonathan was methodical, careful. He wouldn't have kept only one copy of important documents. There has to be a backup, somewhere safe. She thinks about the research station's layout, about Jonathan's paranoia in his final entries, about the warning. Some doors should stay closed. Closed. Hidden. Protected. Sarah starts feeling along the cabin walls, looking for seams, hidden compartments. James catches on, helping her search. They work in desperate silence, checking every surface, every plank. It's James who finds it, a section of wall that sounds hollow when tapped. Working together, they pry away the boards, revealing a narrow space behind. Inside is a metal box, sealed with wax. Sarah's hands shake as she breaks the seal and opens it. Papers. Dozens of them. Original claim documents, properly filed and notarized. Letters from federal officials acknowledging the Colvin Mining Company's rights. Evidence of everything they need. Thank God. James breathes. But Sarah notices something else in the box. A letter, sealed in an envelope marked with her husband's name, Thomas Colvin. She opens it with trembling fingers. The handwriting is Jonathan's, but the date is recent, 1995, just 3 years before Tom died. Thomas, if you're reading this, it means you found the research station, which means you've gone deeper into the mind than you should have. I'm sorry. I hoped the secrets would stay buried. I'm writing this as an old man, dying, full of regrets. The experiments I conducted in 1932 were mistakes. Brilliant mistakes, maybe, but mistakes nonetheless. I thought I could control something that can't be controlled, understand something that shouldn't be understood. The mountain is alive, Thomas. Truly alive, in ways that break everything we think we know about consciousness and matter. And I heard it, trapped part of it in my experiments, trapped part of myself in trying to fix my mistakes. There's a creature, Ghost, we called him, that carries my collar. That collar is a key and a seal. As long as Ghost lives, the mountain's consciousness stays contained. But Ghost is old, so old, kept alive only by the mountain's power. When he finally dies, the seal will break. If that happens, you must let the mountain return to sleep. Don't try to study it. Don't try to harness it. Just let it rest. I've hidden the proof of our family's claims where only family can find them. Protect this land, Thomas. Not for profit. For peace. Your great-grandfather, Jonathan Colvin. The letter is dated March 1995. Sarah's hands are shaking so hard James has to take the paper from her. Tom knew, Sarah whispers. He knew about this place. About Ghost. About all of it. Did he ever mention it? James asks gently. Sarah shakes her head. Never. But Tom went into the mountains alone sometimes. Said he was checking old mining sites. I thought it was just his hobby, connected with family history. She laughs bitterly. He was protecting this place, keeping the secret, and he never told me. Maybe he was trying to keep you safe. James suggests, or maybe he didn't trust me with it. Sarah takes the letter back, reads it again. He died in an avalanche, James. Tom and Emma both. But Tom knew these mountains better than anyone. He wouldn't have made a mistake, wouldn't have taken Emma somewhere dangerous. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it was an accident. Sarah's voice is hollow. Maybe Apex, or someone like them, was already looking for this place 17 years ago. Maybe Tom died protecting it. James is silent, processing. Then, we can't prove that. And even if we could, I know. Sarah carefully places a letter back in the box, along with the claim documents. But it means Tom wants to finish this, to keep the mountain safe, no matter what it costs. They gather the documents and begin to climb back to the surface. But as they're navigating a narrow passage, Sarah hears something that makes her freeze. Voices, ahead of them, not behind, coming from the direction of the cavern with the box. She touches James's arm, signaling silence. They move forward carefully, lights dimmed, until they can see the cavern entrance. 3 people are there: Marcus Reeves, another man Sarah doesn't recognize, and a woman in outdoor gear carrying professional surveying equipment. They're setting up lights, scanning the walls with some kind of handheld device that beeps steadily. The readings are strongest here, the woman says. Whatever generated the mineral signatures, it's centered in this cavern. Keep scanning, Marcus orders. There has to be more than just an empty space. The historical records mention a containment device, some kind of experimental apparatus. Sarah's blood runs cold. They know about the box. Or they knew. They don't realize she already released its contents, that the mountain's consciousness is safely sleeping again. We should go, James whispers in her ear, while they're distracted. But Sarah hesitates. These people are desecrating Jonathan's work, violating the mountain that Tom died protecting. Rage burns through her caution. She steps into the cavern, rifle raised. "Get out," she says loudly, her voice echoing off stone walls. All 3 spin toward her. Marcus's expression shifts from surprise to calculation. "Mrs. Colvin, how convenient. And you've brought your lawyer." He sounds almost amused. "Coming back for more evidence?" "Unfortunately, we've already searched the research station. Quite thoroughly. I noticed. Breaking and entering. Destruction of property. I'm sure that'll look great in court. We have mineral rights to this area," Marcus counters smoothly. "Perfectly legal survey work. Your rights are suspended pending the injunction. An injunction that will be overturned next week when we prove your family's claims are fraudulent." Marcus steps closer, confident. "Give it up, Sarah. You can't win this. We have resources, lawyers, time. What do you have?" "A cabin and a stubborn refusal to accept reality." "I have these," Sarah says, and James holds up the metal box. "Original claim documents. Properly filed. Authenticated. Everything we need to prove legitimate ownership." Marcus's confidence cracks. "Where did you?" "Somewhere you didn't search thoroughly enough." James's voice is cold. "These documents prove the Colvin family has owned this land for 90 years. Your challenge is dead before it starts." The surveyor and the other man exchange glances, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus's jaw tightens. "You're making a mistake," he says. "Whatever you found here, whatever secrets are buried in this mountain, they're bigger than you, bigger than one widow's stubbornness. Forces will come that won't be stopped by injunctions or legal documents." "Is that another threat?" Sarah asks quietly. "It's a warning. From someone who's seen how these things end." Marcus gestures to the cavern. "You think you're protecting something, but all you're doing is delaying the inevitable. Someone will always come looking. Someone will always try to exploit whatever power exists here. Then I'll stop them too," Sarah says. "However long it takes." Marcus stares at her for a long moment. Then he turns to his team. "Pack up. We're done here for now." They gather their equipment and file past Sarah and James, Marcus last. He pauses beside her. "Your husband tried this too, you know," he says softly. "Tried to keep us away. Died for it. I'd hate to see history repeat itself." He walks away before Sarah can respond, leaving her standing in the cavern with her rifle still raised and her hands trembling with rage and grief and terrible understanding. Tom didn't die in an accident. He was killed, and Marcus just confessed to it, knowing she can't prove anything. James touches her arm. "Sarah, let's go. We have what we need." Sarah lowers her rifle slowly. Her voice, when she speaks, is deadly calm. "We're going to destroy them. Not just stop them. Destroy them. Sarah, they killed Tom. They killed Emma. They've been after this mountain for 17 years, and now they've finally shown their hand." She turns to James, and he steps back from the fury in her eyes. "So, we're not just going to win the legal case. We're going to ruin them. expose every dirty secret, every illegal action. We're going to make sure they never threaten this mountain or anyone else ever again. James hesitates, then nods. Okay, but we do it legally, carefully. No vigilante justice. I don't need vigilante justice. Sarah looks around the cavern one final time. I have something better. I have the truth. The courtroom is packed. Sarah sits beside James at the plaintiff's table, wearing clothes that still feel foreign. A simple dress, practical shoes, her hair pulled back neatly. She's learned to navigate this world of legal proceedings and press conferences, but she still feels most herself in worn jeans and mountain boots. The judge enters, and everyone rises. Sarah's heart pounds as they sit again. 6 months of legal battle, of depositions and discovery, of digging through Apex's records and finding things they tried desperately to hide. 6 months of fighting for Tom, for Emma, for Ghost, for the mountain itself. Judge Patricia Morrison is a stern woman in her 60s, with sharp eyes that miss nothing. She looks over her reading glasses at the assembled lawyers, then down at the thick file in front of her. I've reviewed all submitted materials, she begins, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed courtroom. This case has been complex, involving property rights, environmental concerns, historical preservation, and allegations of corporate misconduct. I'm prepared to issue my ruling. Sarah feels James's hand briefly squeeze hers under the table. Supportive, grounding. First, regarding the ownership dispute. The document provided by the Colvin family clearly established legitimate claim to the property in question, dating back to properly filed mining claims from 1932. Apex Mountain Resources' challenge to that ownership is denied. A ripple moves through the courtroom. Sarah exhales slowly. That's the first victory, but not the most important one. Judge Morrison continues. Second, regarding the environmental injunction. Expert testimony has established that the historic mining operations did indeed leave toxic residue, requiring remediation. Further excavation or development would pose significant environmental and public safety risks. The injunction is made permanent. Marcus Reeves, sitting at the defense table with Patricia Vance and 2 other lawyers, keeps his expression neutral, but Sarah sees his jaw tighten. Third, and most significantly, the judge removes her glasses, looking directly at Apex's legal team. During discovery, evidence emerged of systematic corporate misconduct by Apex Mountain Resources. This includes illegal surveillance of private citizens, bribery of public officials to access sealed survey data, and destruction of property during unauthorized mining surveys. Patricia Vance starts to stand. Your Honor, those allegations are substantiated. Judge Morrison cuts her off sharply. By your own internal emails, which Mr. Colvin's team obtained through proper legal channels during discovery. Emails that discuss removing obstacles and neutralizing resistance. Emails that reference surveillance of Mrs. Colvin and attempt to pressure her through isolation and intimidation. Sarah remembers the day James found those emails, buried in thousands of pages of corporate documents. His face had gone pale as he read them aloud. Casual discussions of making Sarah's life difficult, of waiting for her to make a mistake, of using her isolation against her. Your Honor, Patricia Vance tries again. My client disputes the interpretation of... Your client, the judge interrupts coldly, is facing criminal charges. I've forwarded relevant evidence to the district attorney's office, but that's beyond the scope of this case. What is within my scope is issuing sanctions. She looks down at her notes. Apex Mountain Resources is fined $2 million for contempt of court and obstruction of justice. They are permanently barred from any mining, surveying, or development activity within a 50-mile radius of the disputed property. And I am recommending to the Colorado Bar that Ms. Vance face disciplinary proceedings for ethics violations. Patricia Vance sits down hard, face flushed with anger and humiliation. Finally, Judge Morrison says, her voice softening slightly as she looks at Sarah, regarding the petition for permanent land protection. Given the historical, environmental, and cultural significance of the property, I am approving the conservation easement. The land will be permanently restricted from development and designated as a protected archaeological site. Mrs. Colvin and Mr. Colvin will retain ownership and access, but the land itself is now protected in perpetuity. Sarah feels tears burning behind her eyes. She won. They won. The mountain is safe. This court is adjourned. The gavel falls, and the courtroom erupts, reporters rushing toward them. James's law partner slapping him on the back. Environmental groups who join as amicus curiae celebrating. Sarah sits still in the center of the chaos, letting it wash over her, feeling the weight of 6 months finally lifting from her shoulders. Marcus Reeves catches her eye as he's leaving, flanked by his lawyers. For just a moment, their gazes lock. Sarah sees defeat there and rage, and something else, a grudging respect, maybe, or just acknowledgement that he'd underestimated her. He nods once, barely perceptible, then disappears into the crowd. Sarah. James's voice breaks through her thoughts. We need to make a statement to press. Are you ready? She takes a deep breath. Yes. Let's finish this. The courthouse steps are crowded with cameras and microphones. James makes the initial statement, professional and measured, outlining their victory and thanking their legal team. Then he steps aside, and Sarah moves to the podium. She's gotten better at this. Speaking publicly, finding words that won't send her running back to mountain solitude. But she still keeps it simple, honest. 6 months ago, a corporation tried to take something that wasn't theirs, she begins, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. They thought because I lived alone, because I'd isolated myself after losing my family, that I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. Cameras flash. Reporters scribble notes. This case was never just about property rights. It was about protecting places that matter, places with history, with meaning, with secrets that should stay safe. She thinks of Ghost, of Jonathan, of the box that once held a man's consciousness. My husband Tom knew that. He died protecting this mountain 17 years ago, though I didn't understand that until recently. She sees some reporters exchange glances. This is new information, not in any of the legal filings. Tom Colvin was murdered. Sarah lets the words hang in the air. He and our daughter Emma died because he refused to let corporations exploit land he'd sworn to protect. I can't prove that yet, not in a way that will hold up in court, but I know it. And now, finally, I've finished what he started. Mrs. Colvin, a reporter shouts, are you saying Apex was involved in your family's deaths? I'm saying the pattern of corporate misconduct exposed, in this case, goes back decades. I'm saying I won't stop investigating until I know the full truth. And I'm saying that other people, other families protecting land, protecting resources, protecting anything valuable, need to know what they're up against. James touches her elbow gently. They discussed this, agreed she wouldn't make direct accusations without proof. But Sarah's done being careful, done protecting people who destroyed her life. No more questions. James tells the press. Thank you. They push through the crowd to James's car. Only when they're safely inside, doors close against the noise. Does Sarah let herself shake? That was risky. James says, starting the engine, accusing them of murder without evidence. I know, but it's true. Truth and proof aren't the same thing in court. Then I'll find proof. Sarah looks out the window at the Denver skyline, however long it takes. They drive back to James's apartment in silence. Over the past 6 months, this place has become a second home to Sarah, still foreign, still too clean and modern, but no longer actively uncomfortable. She's learned to sleep without the sound of wind and pines, learned to shower with unlimited hot water, learned to exist in spaces that aren't defined by survival. But she's ready to go back to the mountain, has been ready for weeks. Only the court case kept her here, kept her trapped in depositions and legal strategy sessions and endless waiting. Now, finally, it's over. She can go home. When are you leaving? James asks, reading her mind as he often does now. 6 months of close proximity has rebuilt their relationship, transformed it into something different but solid. Not the distant brother-in-law who judged her isolation, but a true friend who understands why she needs a mountain, even as he worries about her being alone again. Tomorrow morning, Sarah says, I need to check the cabin, make sure everything survived the winter. Need to see the mine, make sure the ceiling work held. After they won the preliminary injunction, Sarah and James had hired a mining engineer to properly close the most dangerous passages. They'd sealed the research station behind a locked gate, preserving it for historical studies someday far in the future. The cavern where the box once sat was collapsed entirely, buried under tons of carefully placed charges. Ghost body. Sarah had moved herself. She'd gone back one last time before the sealing, climbed down into that natural cavern, and carried him out wrapped in blankets. She'd buried him on the ridge above her cabin, marked the spot with stones, and said goodbye properly. "I'm coming with you," James says, "at least for the first few days. Help you settle back in." Sarah wants to argue. She's been alone for 17 years. She doesn't need help. But the truth is, she's not the same person who fled into isolation after the avalanche. 6 months with James has reminded her that connection isn't weakness, that accepting help isn't failure. "Okay," she says simply. "Thank you." James smiles. "Besides, I want to see what you're going to do with that fine money." The $2 million fine against Apex is being held in escrow, destined for environmental remediation and land conservation efforts. But Judge Morrison also awarded Sarah significant damages for harassment and property destruction, $300,000, more money than Sarah ever imagined having. "I don't know yet," Sarah admits. "Part of it should go to protecting other sites, places like the mountain that need defending." Agreed, but some of it should be for you. Sarah, you could repair your cabin properly, install solar panels, a real water system, make your life easier. Maybe. Sarah thinks about the cabin, about whether she wants to change it or keep it exactly as it's been, a memorial to survival, to the years when all she could do was endure. But maybe it's time to do more than survive. Maybe it's time to actually live. They make the drive to the mountain the next morning. James's sedan loaded with supplies and equipment. The spring thaw is well underway, snow melting from the lower elevations, revealing brown grass and exposed rock. But higher up, where Sarah's cabin sits, winter still holds on, snow piled deep against the north-facing walls. The cabin looks smaller than Sarah remembers, more fragile. 6 months in Denver has recalibrated her sense of scale, made this rough shelter seem almost absurdly primitive. But when she steps inside, smells a familiar scent of wood smoke and pine, feels a solid floor beneath her boots, something in her chest loosens. Home. This is a still home. James helps her clear snow from the porch, check for winter damage. They find a few loose shingles, one window with a crack that will need replacing, but nothing major. The cabin held. "It's peaceful here," James says, standing on the porch looking out at the valley. "I can see why Tom loved it." "Did he?" Sarah asks. "Love it, he never said." "He did. He used to tell me about the silence, how it felt like being inside the mountain's thoughts." James glances at her. "I thought he was being poetic. Now I wonder if he knew something I didn't." They spend the afternoon making repairs, falling into an easy rhythm. James proves surprisingly handy for a city lawyer, though his methods make Sarah laugh. He measures everything twice, consults YouTube videos on his phone, approaches each task with methodical precision. "You know," he says while they're patching the roof, "I've been thinking about getting a place up here. Nothing fancy, just a small cabin. Somewhere I could come on weekends, decompress from the city." Sarah pauses mid-hammer stroke. "Really? If you wouldn't mind the company." "Not close. I know you need your space. But maybe a few miles away? There's a property that just came on the market near the old logging road." The thought of having James nearby, of not being completely alone, sends complicated emotions through Sarah. Part of her, the part that survived 17 years of solitude, wants to reject the idea immediately. But another part, the part that's been slowly healing over these past 6 months, recognizes this for what it is, a brother-in-law trying to rebuild family, to be there without crowding her. "I'd like that," she says quietly. "I like that a lot." James's smile is warm, genuine. "Good, because I already put in an offer." Sarah throws a handful of snow at him, laughing despite herself. That evening, they make dinner together, fresh food from town, vegetables and bread and coffee that isn't stale, and eat by the wood stove. James tells her about his firm, about cases he's working on. Sarah tells him about the mountain, about changes she's noticed in the forest, about plans for the spring planting season. It feels normal. almost like family. After dinner, Sarah excuses herself. There's something I need to do. Alone. I'll be back before dark. James nods, understanding. Be careful. Sarah bundles up and makes the climb to Ghost's grave. The stones she placed are still there, undisturbed by weather or animals. She sits beside them, legs crossed, letting the silence settle. We won, she tells the grave quietly. The mountain is protected. Apex is finished. Everything Jonathan started, everything Tom tried to protect. It's safe now. The wind whispers through the pines, carrying the scent of snowmelt and coming spring. I've been thinking about what you showed me, Sarah continues. About consciousness, about connection, about things being alive in ways we don't expect. And I wonder if maybe that's not just about mountains. Maybe it's about people too. Maybe I've been so afraid of connection, of loss, that I shut myself away from all the ways life can still be alive. She touches the stones gently. Thank you for showing me it was time to stop hiding. Time to fight for something beyond just surviving. A raven calls from a nearby tree, harsh and clear. Sarah looks up, sees the bird watching her with bright, intelligent eyes. For just a moment, she imagines she sees something familiar in that gaze. Ancient, knowing, approving. Then the raven takes flight, wings beating strong against the mountain air, and Sarah is alone with the stones and the wind and the mountain that kept its secret safe. She makes her way back to the cabin as the sun sets, painting the snow in shades of rose and gold. James has coffee ready, a fire crackling in the stove. They sit together in comfortable silence, watching night claim the valley. What will you do now? James asks eventually. Now that the case is over, the mountain is protected. What comes next? Sarah considers the question. For 17 years, her entire existence was defined by grief and isolation. Then 6 months of fighting, of channeling everything into the legal battle. Now, with both those things resolved, she's left with an open future, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I don't know, she admits. Keep living here. Keep protecting the mountain. Maybe, she hesitates, maybe start letting other people in again. Not many, but a few. That's good, James says. That's really good, Sarah. What about you? After you get your cabin, then what? James is quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about Tom a lot these past few months. About the kind of man he was, the things he cared about. He dedicated his life to protecting places and principles. I've spent mine making money for corporations. It's good work, important sometimes, but it's not what you want anymore, Sarah finishes. No, I'm thinking about switching to environmental law, using what I've learned to protect places like this mountain. There's a non-profit that's offered me a position. Sarah feels warmth bloom in her chest. Tom would love that. He'd be proud of you. I hope so. James raises his coffee cup in a small toast to new directions and to finishing what the people we love started. Sarah clinks her cup against his, to new directions. 3 months later, summer has fully arrived on the mountain, transforming the landscape from white and brown to a riot of green and wildflowers. Sarah's cabin has a new roof now, new windows, a small solar array that provides enough power for lights and a radio. She's still living simply, still surviving on her own skills and knowledge, but the edge of desperation is gone. She's not just surviving anymore. She's building. James's cabin is finished, a small, well-built structure 3 miles away by trail, 5 by road. He comes up most weekends, sometimes stays for a week when he can work remotely. They've fallen into an easy pattern of occasional dinners, shared work on trail maintenance, comfortable silences punctuated by conversation. But Sarah's not just connecting with James. Slowly, carefully, she's been reaching out to others. The environmental groups who supported their case have become allies. Sarah serves on the board of a conservation nonprofit now, advising on land protection strategies. She gives occasional talks, awkward, uncomfortable, but necessary, about the importance of preserving wild places. She's become, somewhat reluctantly, a minor celebrity in conservation circles. The widow who saved the mountain. She hates the title, hates the attention, but she uses it. uses her story to protect other places, to fund other fights. Today, she's expecting visitors. A graduate student from the state university and her faculty advisor, here to begin the long process of properly documenting Jonathan Colvin's research station. Sarah's agreed to grant limited access for historical and scientific study, with strict protocols to prevent exactly the kind of exploitation Jonathan feared. She meets him at the old mine entrance, the unsealed section she now keeps locked with a heavy gate. The student Maya Chun is young and eager, eyes bright with excitement. The professor, Dr. Richard Alston, is older, more measured, but clearly intrigued by what they're about to see. "Thank you for allowing this, Mrs. Colvin." Dr. Alston says as Sarah unlocks the gate. The historical significance of this site could be extraordinary. "I know," Sarah says, "but I need you to understand something before we go down. My great-grandfather-in-law conducted experiments here that were dangerous. That cost him his life, in a sense. Whatever you document, whatever you study, it needs to be done with the understanding that some knowledge carries risks." Maya and Dr. Alston exchange glances. They probably think she's being overdramatic. Sarah realizes. They probably think the stories of mountain consciousness and trapped minds are just family mythology, embellishments added over generations. Let them think that. They'll document the research station, the equipment, the notebooks. They'll never know about the box, about Ghost, about the truth that Sarah sealed away beneath tons of collapsed stone. "We understand," Dr. Alston says respectfully. "We'll be careful." Sarah leads them down into the darkness, flashlights cutting through familiar passages. She's made this journey dozens of times now, enough that the mind no longer feels threatening, just sad. A tomb for ambitions that reach too far, for brilliance that couldn't accept its own limitations. When they reach the research station, Maya gasps. Even after 6 months of weather and Sarah's careful removal of the most sensitive materials, the sight is extraordinary. The cabin in the cavern, the equipment, the carvings on the walls, all of it speaks to work done with passion and precision and growing desperation. "This is incredible," Maya breathes, already pulling out cameras and documentation equipment. "Dr. Alston, look at these symbols. I've never seen anything like them." "They're unique," Sarah says. Jonathan created them as part of his research. What they meant exactly died with him. That's not entirely true. Sarah knows the symbols are connected to the mountain's consciousness, keys to understanding what Jonathan discovered. But that knowledge stays buried along with everything else. They spend hours in the station, photographing, measuring, carefully cataloging. Sarah watches, answering questions when she can, redirecting when they get too curious about passages she sealed or caverns she won't let them access. What's beyond that collapse? Maya asks at one point, pointing to the eastern passage where tons of rock now block the way to where the box once sat. "Nothing," Sarah lies smoothly. "Just more tunnels. They were unstable, so we sealed them for safety." Maya looks disappointed but doesn't push. "Good. Some doors should stay closed." As they're packing up to leave, Dr. Alston approaches Sarah with something in his hand, one of Jonathan's notebooks, pulled from a preserved collection. "Mrs. Colvin, I have to ask. These entries toward the end, your great-grandfather-in-law writes about the mountain being conscious, about experiments in communication with geological formations. Did he suffer from mental illness?" Sarah takes a notebook, reads the familiar passages. "I don't know," she says honestly. "He was a brilliant man who went looking for answers in places most people wouldn't dare to explore. Whether what he found was real or delusion, I suppose that depends on what you're willing to believe is possible. But you believe," Maya says. It's not quite a question. Sarah meets her eyes. "I believe my great-grandfather-in-law found something that scared him badly enough to seal himself away from the world. I believe he spent 90 years trying to warn people to stay away from that discovery. And I believe some warnings should be heeded." She hands a notebook back. "Document what you find. Study the history. But remember that Jonathan Colvin's final message was clear. Some doors should stay closed. Honor that, and we'll have no problems." Dr. Alston nods slowly. "We will. You have my word." They climb back to the surface together, emerging into bright summer sunshine that makes the mine's darkness seem like a dream. Sarah locks the gate behind them, watching as Maya and Dr. Alston make their way back to their vehicle, talking excitedly about what they've seen. She'll let them study the station, let them write their papers, present their findings, add to human knowledge. But the real secrets, ghost, the collar, the box, the mountain's true nature, those stay buried, protected, safe, just as Tom would have wanted, just as Jonathan tried to ensure, just as Sarah will spend the rest of her life defending. 1 year after the trial, Sarah's cabin has visitors today, a rarity, but not unheard of anymore. James is here, along with 3 representatives from the National Forest Service. They're finalizing the last details of the conservation easement, hammering out protocols for access and preservation. But that's not the only reason Sarah invited them. "There's something else I want to show you," she says when the paperwork is complete. "Something I've been working on." She leads them not to the mine, but to a different part of the property, a small clearing where she spent the past months building. They emerge from the trees, and the Forest Service representatives stop in surprise. A cabin stands there, not rough and makeshift like Sarah's, but well-built, professional, with solar panels and a small wind turbine, with accessible ramps and wide doorways. "What is this?" asks Jennifer Martinez, the lead Forest Service coordinator. "A ranger station," Sarah says. "Or at least it could be. I'm proposing that the Forest Service establish a permanent presence here, someone to monitor the protected area, conduct research, manage access to the historical site. I've already built the structure with the settlement money. I'm offering to donate it, along with a small parcel of land." Jennifer looks stunned. "Mrs. Colvin, this is incredibly generous, but we need budget approval for staffing, operational costs." "I know. James has already been in contact with your headquarters about funding. There's interest, apparently, in establishing a pilot program for protecting historically significant mining sites." James steps forward with a folder full of documents. 3 different environmental foundations have committed matching funds. If the Forest Service provides a ranger, the foundations will cover operational costs for the first 5 years. Jennifer takes a folder, flipping through it with growing excitement. This could actually work. We've been wanting to expand our presence in this region, but the budget's been tight. If the infrastructure is already here and the funding is secured, then you just need to approve it, Sarah finishes. The other 2 representatives are already exploring the cabin, exclaiming over the construction quality, the thoughtful design, the equipment Sarah has stocked, first aid supplies, communication gear, reference materials about the mountain's ecology and history. "Why are you doing this?" Jennifer asks Sarah quietly. "You fought so hard to keep people away. Now you're inviting the government to establish a permanent presence." Sarah looks out at the mountain, at the peaks that have defined her life for 17 years. "Because I realized something during the trial. I'm not going to live forever. Someday, this land will need protection I can't provide. Better to set up that protection now, on my terms, with people who understand what matters." She meets Jennifer's eyes. "I'm not inviting people to exploit this place. I'm inviting the right people to help guard it. There's a difference." Jennifer nods slowly. "I understand, and I think we can make this work. I'll take the proposal to my director next week." "Thank you." After the Forest Service team leaves, James stays behind to help Sarah close up the new cabin. They work in comfortable silence, checking that everything is secure. "That was a good thing you did." James says finally, "A brave thing." "Felt necessary," Sarah replies. "Tom tried to protect this place alone. It got him killed. I'm not making the same mistake. He'd be proud of you, of what you've built here." Sarah looks around the clearing, at the cabin that represents connection rather than isolation, protection through community rather than solitary defense. "I hope so. I hope both of them will be proud. Tom and Emma. They would be," James says with certainty. "You took your grief and transformed it into something that protects and preserves. That's not just survival anymore, Sarah. That's legacy." 18 months after the trial, the ranger station is fully operational now, staffed by a young woman named Claire Hoffman, who reminds Sarah a bit of herself at that age, competent, quiet, comfortable with solitude but not running from connection. Claire lives in the station full-time during the summer months, conducting surveys of the mountain's ecology, managing the limited access to the historical mine site, and serving as an additional set of eyes watching for any unauthorized activity. Sarah has taught Claire the mountain's patterns, where animals den, where avalanche danger is highest, which trails are safe and which are treacherous. They become something like friends, or at least friendly colleagues, sharing coffee on cold mornings and comparing notes on wildlife sightings. Today, Sarah is making a different kind of journey. James drives her down to Denver, to a meeting she's been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The district attorney's office is stark, institutional, but the woman who meets them, DA Patricia Ruiz, has kind eyes and a reputation for tenacity. Mrs. Colvin, Mr. Colvin, thank you for coming. She gestures him into her office, closes the door. I wanted to update you personally on the Apex investigation. Sarah's heart rate kicks up. For the past 18 months, a criminal investigation has been ongoing, digging into Apex's activities not just related to Sarah's mountain, but to other sites across 3 states. We built a strong case for corporate fraud, bribery, and environmental crimes. DA Ruiz says, spreading documents across her desk. Multiple executives will face charges. Marcus Reeves specifically is looking at significant prison time. What about Tom? Sarah asks quietly. My husband, the avalanche that killed him and my daughter. DA Ruiz's expression softens with sympathy. That's what I wanted to discuss. We found evidence that Apex was surveying the area 17 years ago, using methods that would have been illegal even then. And we found communications that suggest they knew someone was actively preventing their access to certain sites. She pulls out a specific email, dated 3 months before Tom's death. This is from a contractor Apex hired. It references removing obstacles and ensuring access. The language is vague enough to maintain deniability, but in context, it's an order to harm someone. James finishes, reading over Sarah's shoulder. We believe so, but believing and proving are different standards. Without direct evidence, a witness, a confession, physical proof of sabotage, it's incredibly difficult to pursue murder charges on something that happened 17 years ago. Sarah feels disappointment settling heavy in her chest. She knew this was likely, knew the chances of proving Tom and Emma were murdered were slim, but hearing it confirmed still hurts. However, DA Ruiz continues, we can pursue wrongful death charges in civil court, lower burden of proof, and with everything else we've uncovered about Apex's pattern of intimidation and violence, we'd have a strong case. They'd likely settle rather than risk a trial. I don't want their money, Sarah says immediately. Then put it toward conservation, toward protecting other sites, toward making sure other families don't lose what you lost. DA, Ruiz leans forward. Mrs. Cole, then, you can't bring your family back, but you can make their deaths mean something. You can ensure Apex faces consequences, that their executives go to prison, that their company is dismantled and can never threaten anyone else. Sarah looks at James. He nods slightly. The decision is hers, but he supports whatever she chooses. All right, Sarah says finally, file the wrongful death suit. But any settlement money goes directly into a trust for land conservation. Not a penny for me. Understood. DA Ruiz makes a note. There's one more thing. Marcus Reeves wants to meet with you. Sarah's stomach clenches. Why? He says he has information about the mountain specifically, historical records, survey data from the 1930s that Apex acquired from Jonathan Colvin's surviving family members. He's offering to turn over everything in exchange for a recommendation of leniency. No, Sarah says immediately. He doesn't get leniency. Not after what he did. What if the information could help protect the mountain? DA Ruiz asks gently. What if there are other sites, other dangers you don't know about? Sarah thinks about the collapsed cavern, about the mountain's sleeping consciousness, about secrets she's already buried. Does she want to know what else Apex discovered? Does she want to risk anyone else learning what Jonathan found? Let me think about it, she says finally. Sarah spends a week wrestling with the decision. She talks to James. to Claire the ranger, to Dr. Alston who's been studying the research station. She even hikes up to Ghost's grave, sitting among the stones, asking for guidance that doesn't come. Finally, she makes her choice. The prison where they're holding Marcus Reeves pending trial is gray and depressing, all concrete and security checkpoints. Sarah submits to the searches, the metal detectors, the escort through locked doors. James is with her. She wouldn't do this alone. They meet in a small conference room. Marcus enters wearing orange scrubs instead of his expensive suits, looking tired and older than he did at trial. But his eyes are still sharp, assessing. Mrs. Colvin, Mr. Colvin, thank you for coming. Sarah doesn't sit. You have 5 minutes. Say what you want to say. Marcus gestures to the folder on the table. Everything Apex gathered on the Colvin property over 20 years of research. Surveyed data, historical records, interviews with people who worked the mines in the 30s. And something else. Letters between Jonathan Colvin and a geologist named Harrison Webb, discussing what they found. Sarah's breath catches. She didn't know Jonathan corresponded with anyone about his work. Why are you giving this to me? She asks. Marcus is quiet for a moment. Because I've had 18 months in here to think about my choices, about the things I did in pursuit of profit. And I realized that your husband, Tom, he understood something I didn't. Some places aren't meant to be exploited. Some discoveries aren't meant to be made. He pushes the folder toward her. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I can give you this. Every piece of information that could threaten what you're protecting. Destroy it. Study it. Whatever you think is right. Just keep people like me away from that mountain. Sarah opens the folder slowly. Inside are maps, survey results, and her heart stops. Copies of letters in Jonathan's handwriting, discussing consciousness and connection, and experiments that terrified him even as he conducted them. Did you read these? She asked sharply. Of course. That's how I knew the mountain was worth pursuing. Marcus meets her eyes. I thought if I could replicate what Jonathan did, if I could understand the mechanism, I could monetize it, sell it to tech companies, to governments. Consciousness manipulation, enhanced communication with non-human systems. Can you imagine what that would be worth? Can you imagine what it would destroy? Sarah counters. Now I can. I couldn't before. Marcus stands slowly. I'm going to prison for a long time, Mrs. Colvin. That's justice. But let this be the end of it. Take this information and make sure no one else comes looking. Sarah closes the folder. I'll consider your cooperation in my statement to the judge. Not a recommendation for leniency, just an acknowledgement that you chose to help in the end. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. The guard comes to take Marcus back. At the door, he pauses. Your husband died defending that mountain from me. Tell him, wherever he is, tell him I'm sorry, and that he won. Then he's gone, and Sarah is left holding a folder full of secrets that could destroy everything she's fought to protect. 2 years after the trial, Sarah stands on the ridge above her cabin, watching the sun rise over the valley. It's autumn now, her favorite season, when the aspens turn gold and the air carries the first bite of coming winter. She's 51 years old, no longer the broken widow who fled into isolation, but something different. Scarred, yes, but whole in ways that matter. The folder Marcus gave her sits in a safe in James's office, unread except for the letters between Jonathan and Harrison Webb. Those letters confirm what Sarah already knew, that the mountain's consciousness was real, that Jonathan's experiments touched something that shouldn't have been touched, that the danger wasn't imagined but profound. But the letters also contained something else. Harrison Webb's final correspondence, dated just before Jonathan sealed himself away, offering a solution. Webb had been a geologist, but also a scholar of indigenous traditions, and he suggested that some consciousness doesn't need to be studied or controlled, just acknowledged and respected. That's what Sarah has done. She acknowledges a mountain's awareness, respects its sleep, and guards both fiercely. The wrongful death suit against Apex settled for $12 million, all of it directed into a conservation trust. That trust now protects 17 different sites across 3 states, employing rangers and researchers, funding legal battles for families fighting corporations similar to Apex. The trust is named after Tom and Emma Colvin. Their legacy isn't death, but protection. Marcus Reeves was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Patricia Vance was disbarred. Apex Mountain Resources dissolved. Its assets seized and sold to pay fines and restitution. The people who destroyed Sarah's family face justice. Imperfect justice maybe, but real. And Sarah? Sarah learned to live again. She still lives in her cabin, still maintains her trapline, still finds peace in solitude, but she's no longer isolated. James visits most weekends. Claire the ranger stops by for coffee twice a week. The graduate students studying Jonathan's work occasionally hike up to ask questions. And every month, Sarah drives down to Denver to meet with the Conservation Trust Board, to fight new battles, to protect new places. She's discovered something that took 17 years of grief to learn. Connection isn't betrayal of the dead. Choosing to live fully isn't forgetting those you lost. Tom and Emma will want to survive, yes, but more than that, they'd want to thrive, to find meaning, to protect the things they loved. Ghost Grave is covered in wildflowers this time of year, volunteers that spring up without planting. Sarah visits it regularly, sometimes talking to the stones, sometimes just sitting in silence. The collar sits in her cabin now, in a small box on her shelf, reminder of the impossible things she witnessed and the choices she made to keep them safe. Today, there's a new addition on Ghost Grave, a small stone marker, professionally carved. Ghost Guardian of the Mountain 1932 presents some secrets are worth keeping. Claire helped Sarah place it yesterday, asking questions Sarah deflected with practiced ease. Let people think it's metaphorical, a memorial to a family story. Only Sarah needs to know the truth. She hears footsteps behind her, James, climbing up to join her for their weekly coffee ritual. He's moving slower these days, the mountain taking its toll on city soft muscles, but he's persistent, determined to be present in Sarah's life, to rebuild a family that tragedy shattered. "Morning," he says, settling beside her with 2 thermoses of coffee. "Thought you might be up here. Couldn't sleep. Too much to think about. The trust meeting next week? The new lawsuit in Montana? All of it." Sarah accepts the coffee gratefully. "Sometimes I wonder if Tom knew this would happen. If he knew that protecting this one mountain would turn into protecting dozens. If that's why he fought so hard. Maybe Tom was always thinking bigger than the immediate moment." James sips his coffee. "But I think he'd be amazed by what you built, what you become." "We become," Sarah corrects. "I couldn't have done any of this alone." "No, but you could have stayed alone. That's the real change, Sarah. You let people back in." They sit in comfortable silence, watching the valley fill with morning light. Somewhere below, Claire is probably starting her rounds, checking trail conditions and wildlife cameras. In Denver, the Conservation Trust staff is preparing for the next legal battle. Across 3 states, land that might have been destroyed is instead protected, saved by the foundation Tom and Emma's deaths unwillingly built. "Do you still miss them?" James asks quietly. "Every day? Or does it get easier?" "Both," Sarah says honestly. "I miss them constantly. But it doesn't hollow me out anymore. The grief is still there, but as company now, purpose, connection, things worth living for beyond just survival." "Good." James raises his coffee in a small toast to Tom and Emma, and to the mountain they loved. "To the mountain," Sarah echoes, touching her thermos to his. The sun breaks fully above the ridge, flooding the valley with golden light. And Sarah Colvin, who spent 17 years hiding from life, makes a choice she's made every morning for the past 2 years. She chooses to live, to fight, to protect, to connect. She chooses everything Tom and Emma would have wanted for her. She chooses a mountain, and the mountain, in its vast, sleeping awareness, accept her guardianship of the patience of stone and the wisdom of something far older than humanity. Some doors stay closed. Some secrets stay buried. Some promises last lifetimes. And on a ridge in the high mountains, where snow leopards once walked in consciousness, once broke free of stone, a woman keeps watch. Not alone anymore, but still vigilant. Not broken anymore, but still scarred. Not just surviving anymore, but finally, truly, fully alive. The mountain rests peacefully beneath her feet, its secret safe, its consciousness sleeping its guardian faithful, and that, Sarah knows in her bones, is exactly as it should be,